For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Martone, and I've been teaching at NCCL since 1992. Group 1 has been kindergarten, first grade, K-1, 2, and also first and second grade, and I've taught in all those mixes. So I'm going to talk to you about the very beginning number concepts, some developmental learning stages that kids move through, and the primary focuses for kindergarten, first, and second. So, as Marilyn said, the number concepts are much more abstract than most adults think. Number has to be experienced over and over again for them to actually realize what it is. And our goal is to give them a solid mathematical foundation and develop a community of problem solvers, as Marilyn was talking about, take risks, support each other. So the most important beginning number concepts when kids start school here are one-to-one correspondence, which sounds very simple, but kids will count, and they'll count more than one cube at a time. And although they have memorized a counting sequence, that doesn't mean they understand or have one-to-one correspondence. Then the next thing is inclusion, which means understanding that that number that they counted includes everything in the group they counted, not just kind of point and land. That's 5. And then another really interesting developmental, which is a critical learning stage, is conservation of number. And I'm going to show you a beginning assessment that I do in the beginning of the year with all the kids. And this is what I basically do. This is an individual assessment, and what I ask the kids to do is come up and work with me. They get to come over and work with Kelly for a little bit, while the rest of them are doing different kinds of math tasks that are set up around the classroom. And I've lined up 2 rows of beads. They are lined up exactly across from each other. And I will ask the kids, so I lined up 2 rows of beads, and I was just wondering, do you think I have the same amount of beads in each row? And then the kids will look, and they'll say, yes, yeah, you have the same amount of beads in each row. And so then I just say, okay, now watch me. And I spread apart the row of beads, and I say, do I still have the same amount of beads in each row? And the kids go, no. I don't. Okay, so which row has more beads? This one. It's bigger. So that is so telling about where they are developmentally. And the majority of kindergarten kids come in to school and they do not have conservation of number, meaning they don't understand that 10 is always 10. So without knowing that 10 is always 10, you can't build on that. They can learn other things, but it just takes so many experiences. So that's our job, is to provide all kinds of experiences to help them to achieve that. So I'm going to show you some other games that we would play that would help with that. So this is where they're matching quantities with a number. They're counting out real objects. These are stories, and the kids get very involved in their stories. The farmer went out today, and he had 10 chickens in the pen, and they get involved with their friends. They incorporate each other. It's pretty amazing, actually. They love it. This is called Roll a Tower, which really seems quite simple, but is very popular. They're rolling a die, and that tells them how big of a tower that they're going to make, and they are then coloring in the dots, and they're seeing which one comes in first, second, so they're throwing in some ordinal numbers as well. But the goal is just that one-to-one correspondence, counting, and all those good things. This is for the next one. So this is another thing that we do, and this is called building number designs. This is kind of the foundation. We start doing this in kindergarten, but then we move into it in more detail in first grade. Let me just see what else I had here. Oh, so about the counting sequence, and that they do come into school with memorization. That kids really can parrot things, and even with that first assessment, I could teach them the right things to say, and they would all tell me the right thing, but then they wouldn't be able to use that information to help them later on when they're trying to problem solve. So the key is to provide experiences where they are actually going to internalize that information. So we do lots of estimating and checking, and part of establishing a good tone and culture with the kids is that I tell the kids, we're just looking for a good guess, and the more that we do it, the better we're going to get. So we estimate with little line puzzles and cups and string and all sorts of things, arms and legs, and they like to measure how big I am, and we're all over the floor, and we have lots of fun. But it's meaningful to them. And so the more estimating and checking they do, the more comfortable they are with number. And then another important thing is learning to see and create pattern. In the beginning, they're trying to remember the counting sequence. They lose track. They forget the number they counted to or the number you asked them to count to. They get different answers when they recount the same group. And the number they fall on is their number. Because it doesn't have any, they don't have a sense of quantity yet. So they're developing that. So that's all kindergarten. And then in first grade, I was starting to talk about the main focus for the year here. This is composing and decomposing numbers. So this is a number design. So the kids will work on number designs for weeks at a time. It is their work. It's their primary work. And what they will do is, there are some rules. Their number designs can use color tiles, pattern blocks, unifix cubes, beads, all sorts of collections that we have to work with. But they have to use the same number in their design every time. When we're working with 6 for the week or 7 for the week, that's what they're doing. They have to be flat because we have to be able to see all the parts of the number. And they have to be touching in some way so that it can't just be kind of randomly thrown about. So then they start, they make as many designs as they want, and then they start recording their designs, and they also like being creative with them. They name them different things. They make books of them. You will see tons of them come home if you have a kindergarten or first grade student. And then they move on. We start, I ask them questions about their number design. So I'll say, I like this one. Can you tell me about this one? How many green are in your design? And then they'll tell me, I see 4 green, 4 green, okay. And how many tan diamonds do you have in your design? 2. And how many were in that design altogether? Inevitably, they go back and they recount. So it doesn't matter that they've made designs of 6 all week long, and all of those are designs of 6. They go back and count. And that's because it's not internalized yet. So the goal for our first graders is that they have their combinations, their number combinations from 1 to 10 internalized by the end of first grade, and that they also have developed really good strategies for adding and subtracting to 20. So I want to go back to say that internalized again versus memorized, because there's a huge difference. When kids internalize something, they have it forever. They can take it and they can run with it because it becomes a part of who they are. When they are just memorizing facts and memorization can just be forgotten, and that doesn't mean that you can build on it. So that's where we are really trying to develop, a strong math student by internalizing these concepts. So that's kind of the basis for first grade. So I talked to you about the conservation of number, which is a more formalized assessment that I do with each child in the beginning of the year. But then there's ongoing assessments that are happening every day. So most of our math classes start with what's called a number talk. And our number talks can range in time and size and all that kind of thing. But a common number talk for first grade, I'll give you an example of one that I did today, was that I have very large dice, and the kids took turns rolling 2 dice. And then I built the towers that went with what they rolled. They were playing against me. And so they rolled a 4 and a 5. So I built a tower of 4 blue and a tower of 5 brown, and I put them together, and they're in front of us sitting in the little circle. So everybody can see my tower of 4 and 5. And then I asked them to give me a silent thumbs up if they can tell me how many are in the tower, and then tell us how that they solved that problem. So one of the kids today, the first thing that they said was, I know. Okay. I said, I got 9. How did you get 9? I counted from right there, right from the start. Okay. All right, that's great. Did somebody solve it in a different way? So the person next to him said, I did. I got 9, but I counted here. I started counting at 5. Oh, so you counted on from 5. All right, so she counted on from 5, so then we do that model. And then someone else said, well, I did it different. I knew that 4 plus 4 was 8, and so one more must be 9. Oh, okay. So that person's using that doubles plus 1 strategy already. And then somebody else said, I did it differently. I knew that 5 plus 5 was 10, so I took 1 away, and I knew that must be 9. So that's a way that I am gathering so much information about where those students are and what they need to learn in a form of a kind of informal, ongoing assessment that we do every day in the number talk. So that's just kind of an example of how we start. So that was our starting number talk lesson, and then they all moved into activity choices that are going to reinforce whatever the lesson is that we're working on at the time. So then 2nd grade, the primary focus in 2nd grade is really on developing place value, understanding of place value, which just like conservation of number in kindergarten and composing and decomposing is one of those things that's extremely abstract, and as adults I'm sure you don't remember when that thought came to you, like, oh, there are tens and extras, and you know, it just kind of comes. But it's really big, and it's really difficult for kids to grasp. So we spend a lot of time building numbers with models. So we have what's called a place value board. Well, this is more examples of number designs. So this is beads. See the stacks of 6? And then 3 plus 3 equals 6.
You have to read it sort of from
upward
stacks of 6.
So I start by doing, I model everything with natural language, and then I also model it with symbols, but they're not expected to use that yet. They can if they want to. But the key is that their work is their design. Their work is their problem solving, and then the symbols come last. The symbols are just a means of recording your work. So that's what I say, oh, that's just a way that we record work. This is your work. Your work is your number designs. So there's another number design, orange robot. And here's several of his, so he's chosen his favorite. There's Ducky. 2 plus 3 is 5. But this is the way that they internalize it. Here's our toothpicks. So we've got a flying kite going on. This is Unifix trains, and they're making books of number designs with Unifix trains. And this is 2nd grade. So this is a place value board. I don't know if you can tell, but this side of the board is one color, it's orange, and the other is white. So they have a side for their tens and their extras. And we spend lots of time, like I said, building a number. So we'll have a game called Build It Fast. Well, write a number on the board, and they need to build it with tens and extras. Once they get very comfortable with this, and also with finding pattern in number, which is much more sophisticated than, you know, working on head, toe in kindergarten with an A-B pattern, but moving ahead, because we do pattern in every age group, but moving ahead to look for it in number, they start playing these kinds of games. So this is called roll and add or roll and subtract, and the kids are given a number at the top of their sheet that they build, and then they roll 2 dice, and one is a tens die, so it has a little T on it, and that's going to tell them how many tens they're going to add to their board, and then how many extras. So we always tell the kids that, you know, mathematicians think. We are all mathematicians. So the first thing you do every time you do a problem is you're going to think. What would be a reasonable answer? What do you think would be a reasonable answer? And the kids too, they take it so seriously. I love it. And they're so supportive of each other. We have rules like, you can never say something, oh, that's easy. We don't say things like that. And why wouldn't we say something like that? Because the person next to you, it might not be easy. So those are rules that we all abide by in our class. Everybody respects each other, and every idea is valid. So that's just part of another thing about culture and tone. And so these are all problems that they're doing with roll and add. They move from using these models all the time to them, they get a sheet of paper where they cover up the models, and they're just thinking. And then we move to where we're doing things together on the board, and they're telling us how they would solve it, and they're learning to do their own kinds of notation. And then they move to just recording with symbols. And then it's a process of bringing it in to make it more efficient. So that's pretty much kindergarten through 2nd grade.